This problem is slightly more complicated because of the fact that in the numerator of each of these fractions you have multiple terms. So you have a binomial up here and you have a binomial up here. Also, you have a negative sign out in front of this group that we have to handle carefully. Our overall strategy does not change, however, in that the first thing we need to do is figure out what the least common denominator is. So as I look at my three denominators, I have x, 3x, and 3. So I can tell that we're going to have a 3 in that least common denominator. And because you have an x in these two, and just an x, not an x squared or anything like that, there also has to be an x in the least common denominator. So as we take a look to verify, 3 goes into 3x, 3x goes into 3x as well, and so does x. So this works for our least common denominator. The first step is to take everything that you see and multiply it by that 3x. So as we write this out, we have 3x times your first group, which is 2 minus x all over x, minus 3x times your second group. So I kept that negative sign here. So 3x times x plus 3 all over 3x. And then your common denominator, 3x times your negative 1 over 3. From here, what I like to do is I like to cancel out things that are the same in my common denominator and my multiple. So x's cancel, the 3x and 3x cancel, and the 3 and this 3 all cancel out, which makes simplifying better. Because you have 3 times just 2 minus x now, because this denominator went away, minus all of this 3x canceled out, so you just have x plus 3 in parentheses, that's really important, and then you have x times your negative 1, which is left when you canceled out those 3's. From here, it's just distributive property, so 3 times 2 and 3 times a negative x makes a 6 minus 3x. This negative gets distributed to this set of parentheses, which is why it was so important. This negative stays here that whole time, but now gets distributed. And then that's equal to x times negative 1, which is a negative x. Now you get to this point, and you combine like terms. So that's negative 4x plus 3 is equal to a negative x. And then you solve your equation continued by adding 4x to both sides, which will leave you with a 3 equal to 3x. And your final step would be to divide by 3 on both sides to get x alone, and x will equal 1. So that is how you do this fraction buster problem. As I said earlier, you got to have a common denominator with an x in it, and handling that negative is where a lot of students make mistakes, making sure that you are getting it to distribute anytime you have a negative with a group of terms in the numerator. You're going to have to distribute that negative to that group at some point. And once we canceled out this 3x down here, we're able to end up with this. Makes it a lot easier without those fractions or without those denominators in there to come up with your solution.